Hi everyone, it's Liam here from A Shot of Wildlife. Recently the people over at APEMAN contacted me to see if I could do a review of their new H80 Trail Camera in return for keeping the camera afterwards. After making sure that I could give it a fair and honest test and mention good and bad parts if there are any, they've sent me the camera through, and in this video I'm going to take it into the countryside, hopefully film some cool wildlife, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about its features and if there are any good or bad parts about it. Let's get out there. Trail cameras only point in one direction and the sensor will only trigger for a certain area, so you want to make sure that where you've picked is the perfect place. Now these sites can be really varied, but they can include near to sources of food or water, near a hole or burrow, or places like this where the soil's loose and disturbed and animals have either been digging through the mud in search of food or passing through the area. Or areas like this where there's a channel through the vegetation that shows that creatures have been passing through. Once you've picked a place for the camera, go ahead and attach it to a solid tree. Make sure there's nothing in the way, no like branches that are going to sway in the wind. Probably won't include that. Once you've decided where you're going to put the camera, you need to pick a solid tree, pole or post to attach it to. This one's only about 8 inches wide, but you can go up to something around 2 foot if you need to. The strap's really long, so you can attach it to pretty much anything. And then you can go ahead, open it up and check which way it's facing. It's got a little screen here so you can actually see exactly what the camera's going to catch if it gets triggered throughout the evening or throughout the night. Once you're happy with where the camera is positioned, turn it to the on mode and then you have 5 seconds to close the case and the camera will be live. After leaving the camera in the woods for a couple of nights in 2 different places, I've come back to collect it. Now if I wanted to, I could connect my phone to the camera and see exactly what it's filmed, but it shows you in a reduced quality. So I'd rather get home, whack the memory card into my laptop and see what surprises we have in store. The first few videos featured this oversized brown rat walking back and forth. I worried that this introduced and very common species may have been the only capture, something I could have probably filmed in my own back garden. But worry not, as the night pressed on, the species became more exciting. Firstly, this male muntjac with his single pronged antlers slowly ambled across the screen, oblivious to the presence of the camera. And then, things got really exciting. It's hard not to instantly recognise the black and white shades of a European badger. I've only ever seen one badger in the flesh and it was a very brief sighting, so to me, this is one of my favourite things I've ever filmed. I'm not sure how many passed by throughout the night, but at one point, one brought a meal into view and began devouring it. Look how it uses its claws and teeth to tear its food apart. Badgers are omnivores and eat a wide range of insects, small mammals, eggs, berries, fruits and vegetables, and pretty much anything else they can get their claws on. Now I know at least one of you will be worrying that the poor rat from earlier has met his end and became the badger's supper. But fear not. Shortly after the badger left, the rat made a reappearance and scurried away with the leftovers. The second night with the camera trap turned out to be far less successful, although at one point the camera did trigger to catch this badger as it disappeared out of view. During the final morning, the camera triggered twice more, for this European rabbit and this male pheasant. Perhaps not as exciting, but without the camera trap, I would never have known that these species passed by. I know my videos are all focused on wildlife, but it's time to talk about some of the camera's features that let me capture this footage and that will enable me to make lots more nighttime wildlife videos into the future. So now that we've seen what the camera can do, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. So this trail camera can take 30 megapixel pictures and can film in up to 4K. Now you're not going to see the 4K capabilities in this video because my actual camera doesn't film in 4K, so this is going to be in 1280. However, this can do 4K, and that does mean that the raw footage, once you put the memory card from this into the laptop, is actually better than the stuff I've shown you here. Now, apart from that, I'm going to mention some of the good parts and the bad parts of this camera. The camera takes AA batteries, 8 of them, and I use rechargeable ones because it doesn't seem fair to throw them away after every use. And I have to say, the same thing has happened with this camera as has happened with previous trail cameras I've tried out, and that is that the batteries never show fully charged when you turn the camera on, even if they are fully charged. I thought that was going to affect the battery life, but this camera was out in the countryside for a few days and it didn't have any problems. It actually showed exactly the same amount of battery left when I got back to collect the camera as it did when I left it there in the first place. So I think going forward I'm going to leave it outside for longer and see how long it actually lasts on 8 fully charged rechargeable AA batteries. I wish that trail cameras would do the same thing as drones, whereby they come with their own battery and you can take one out, put a new recharged one in and then leave the camera there, instead of having to use AA batteries. I know a lot of people will use rechargeable ones like I do, but some people will be inclined to use the throwaway ones, and for people who are interested in the environment, it's not really the effect you want to have. Now, a second thing, if you take a look here, when this camera is attached to a post or a tree or anything else, it's great because you can open it up, he says, you can open it up and there, just here at the front, there is a screen. So this is a 2-inch screen and it does show you what the camera can see. That's a good and a bad thing because the camera's here and when you've got it tied to a post or whatever, the only thing you actually can see in this screen when you're looking at it is your own face. So as low as it's a great idea, it's much better than the cameras where when you'd open it, it would swing open and the whole thing moves with it so you can't really see what the camera's pointing towards. It's a good idea and it's definitely a step in the right direction. I think it needs a little bit of finalising. Perhaps you know how cameras get the flip screens, perhaps that could be the same here and this could flip up so you can actually see what it sees without just having your face in it. I mean, I'm not too scared of having my face on camera, as you can probably tell, but it kind of defeats the objective of having it on the front. I already mentioned before that this camera, you can connect it to your mobile phone through a special app, and that allows you to check what the camera's seen without having to move it, which is really quite handy. It's quite useful. It does use up a lot of the battery, and perhaps if you went there and the batteries are dead, then obviously you wouldn't be able to check what you wouldn't be able to check what you'd seen until you got home and put the memory card in. But yeah, apart from that, I did actually stick a couple of other trail cameras out at the same time as I put this one into the woods with the badgers, and they only got triggered once or twice each, even though they were placed in just as good locations. So I have a feeling this one here is much better at picking up wildlife when it comes past. There were a couple of false triggers where the camera had triggered and there wasn't actually anything there, but there was also times where it triggered and then the subject came into frame, that's exactly what you want. You don't want to film an animal halfway across the screen or as it walks out of the screen. You want to film an animal as it's coming into the screen. So that's great. That means the range of this sensor here is just beyond the range of the camera, and yeah, that's a great addition. Just like most other trail cameras these days, this one's got an IP66 waterproof rating, which means as long as it doesn't actually get submerged in water or soaked for a long period of time, all the inside stuff should remain dry. Other features of the camera include a 65-foot triggering distance. I didn't actually test that out fully, so I'm not sure how accurate that'll be, and that'll obviously depend on how hot or cold it is. If it's hotter, then it won't be as sensitive, and I imagine it'll actually have a shorter trigger distance, but if it's cold and clear, then perhaps it can actually trigger up to 65 feet. So this camera is currently available on Amazon for £99.99, which makes it a little bit more expensive than some of the other models you can get, but I personally think it's worth the difference, and I'm actually going to go and buy another one for myself. Now if you're interested and want to know more about the camera, then there is a link for it down below. Yeah, I hope this review wasn't too different to what you're used to on my channel, and if you'd like to get back to British wildlife videos, then check out one of these two that's popping up on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.